It's a game they've got to play. It's on the schedule, and you certainly don't want to go into the playoffs with a loss, especially to the Chargers, a team they've dominated. So how Kansas City takes this mentally, I think, is going to be very interesting.
Well, let's stop and talk about that for just a second. They are locked into the third spot, and I don't know how yesterday affects what happens today, but at one time there were 5 different teams the Chiefs could possibly play. I don't know if that's been pared down.
Well, it probably won't be decided until tonight when Miami plays Buffalo, because that could be a circumstance as well. But you're not going to decide anything until very late tonight or early tomorrow when the ultimate decision makers, television, comes into play. That's when we know not only who they play, but what time they play and when.
Well, I know as of today, it is Buffalo that they would be playing. My question to you is that a team that they want to play?
Well, they've already. I disagree. I think it is because they played them there once, played them in Kansas City once, and Buffalo won it. Close game, but Buffalo won the game. A second time around, I think Kansas City would be favored in this situation because, after all, they will have had virtually a week to rest. The regulars will. And Buffalo will not. They will have played a very tough Miami team coming in. I think it favors Kansas City if that's the case.
What do you think, Alec?
Well, I personally wouldn't want to run into Buffalo in the first round. It doesn't seem like a great consolation prize to have a Josh Allen-led team. And Buffalo has looked very good for the back part of this season. They have a shot to win their division. If they win tonight, Buffalo will be the number 2 seed in the AFC, and it would be Miami. That's going to Kansas City next week. But also, there's the ultimate high, low for a team. If Jacksonville wins this afternoon, Buffalo misses the playoffs with a loss. So win, you're the 2 seed. Lose, you're out. The AFC is so tight at the top there. There's so many good teams. That's just the perfect picture of it. So if I'm Kansas City, I would rather see an AFC South team, or if my Steelers sneak in, I'd rather play them than Buffalo. But, they're going to have that home field advantage no matter what, and I think they'll be favored against any opponent they run into.
Where's your Steelers sit at right now?
They, as of this exact moment, they're the 7 seed, but they need help. They need Jacksonville to lose, or they need Buffalo to lose in order to hold the 7 seed. And they will go to the winner of if Jacksonville were to lose, they would go to the winner of Buffalo Miami. If Jacksonville wins and then Buffalo loses, they would go to Miami.
A lot of stuff going on. A lot of strange things happening. I know they've got the guy out who does the election boards. He's been on
Karnacki on NBC doing his big board with percentages.
Roll up his sleeves and do all that.
Yeah,
come on,
all that stuff. Trying to tell us how this works out, where all the playoff seedings go. But this, has to be a happy time for the NFL, right, Josh? Because they've got what they want. They've got some important games being played today.
Yeah,
just
coming
not a
down
Chiefs
to
game.
the last games of the season, and they're going to decide possibly what you're saying, like maybe 5 spots in the playoff. Yeah, that's exactly what the NFL wants. That's their manufactured parity.
You're being sarcastic, but that is exactly what they want. It's discussed every single day of the week. If this happens, if X goes to Y, then Z sneaks. Come on, it's all manufactured that way.
Well, and it keeps people interested. Because if the Steelers had lost, or if they had lost a couple weeks ago and they were out, would you have even watched that game yesterday?
Probably as a send-off to the season, because then it'll be another 6-7 months before you get to watch them again.
I don't know if I'm going to watch the game today, the Chiefs game, because like Ned said, it's a preseason game. You're not going to get the best quality Chiefs team, and even if you got the best quality Chargers team, that's not worth watching.
Well, wait. Let me say this though. You will listen to it on 104.7.
Of course I will.
Cave. Yeah.
I will.
Okay.
I just won't watch
because it's coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. 3:35, I think, will be 3:25 kickoff time. Chiefs and the Chargers right here on 104.7 The Cave. Until then, you've got the Chiefs pregame show and us, Ned Talk, brought to you by The Dive on Patent, the best place to watch the Chiefs downtown. So let's stop and talk about. I'll get all of your opinions on last week's game. Did it make you feel better, worse, or just about the Chiefs?
I would say the latter. Because they didn't really look all that overpowering to me. And they won. They won because they had the good plays. Again, I want to emphasize they got some breaks in the game. But the fact is that Kansas City's a better team, personnel-wise. In Cincinnati, they have not been playing as a better team, however. That's why I'm a little surprised that Andy Reid didn't at least play these regulars for one quarter to keep them in the rhythm of things. But he knows what's best. He's the head coach. So they being the regulars, will have an extra week to prepare for this because I doubt very much. Kelsey may play to get his contract. Was he 16 yards away from
I think it was 16 yards from 1,000 for the 8th consecutive year.
Cool.
So he'll play a drive.
What he'll do at that first drive, bing, 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 got it, get at him, get him out of there. And Chris Jones, of course, has the nagging groin injury, but I'm going to give this name a try. Zuma Udake, the kid from Kansas State, is a defensive end, and I'm not sure they're going to play him quite a bit to see if he's ready to take over because Jones may not be with the team next year.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think you're going to see? Did you watch the game last week? How'd you feel about the Chiefs, Alec?
So I didn't watch it all the way through, but I was in and out of it. And, I also feel we didn't. What I learned more than anything was that Cincinnati's offensive line is worse than I thought it was because I thought the offensive line would hold up a little better, but in that final fourth quarter, the Chiefs' defensive front just absolutely took over. I think it was in 12 dropbacks. Like the last 12 dropbacks for Cincinnati, there were 5 sacks, 2 intentional groundings. Mm-hmm. Just absolute domination, and I don't care if that had been Joe Burrow back there. It would at that point it doesn't matter. There's just no time.
Alec, do you think that second one was an intentional grounding?
I
don't.
Yeah.
I think the receiver was there, and I don't know what the officials are doing, but it's a strange year.
I feel that there's been an emphasis on grounding this year. I think quarterbacks have gotten away with it a little too leniently, so they've been trying to tell them, hey, let's be a little – throw the flag more often. Mm-hmm. But you got to give some credit, especially when instances where a guy's getting hit and that affects the throw. But either way, the Chiefs' defensive front ended that game with an exclamation mark, so that was good to see. But we've seen that happen before this year. The offense looked fine. They're gonna need to be better to rip off 4 wins in a row to win a Super Bowl. And as of right now, we haven't seen it consistently enough for me to believe that that's a possibility yet.
And with playing away from home, which they will do after next week.
What do you think, Josh?
Well, I mean, I texted you guys at the end of the game. I'm glad I was wrong because I picked Cincinnati to win that game, and I'm glad I was wrong. The Chiefs did what they had to do to win. Their defense was the key. Because the defense really did play well. But my concern is unless they can play better than that, like Ned has said, unless that offense gets better, they're not going to beat anybody in the playoffs, in my opinion.
You don't think that the defense is good enough to – there used to be the old saying in the NFL, defense wins championships.
I think the defense could maybe get them through this first round of the playoffs, but then if they end up playing Miami or Buffalo or Baltimore – or Jacksonville, let's
not forget to mention the hottest team in the NFL right now, Cleveland
Browns.
Well, okay, yeah. So there's 5 teams that I don't think they can beat right now. So
I think they can beat Miami.
Well, you say they're the hottest team, but they're losing 21-0 at the moment.
They're also
to the Bengals.
A 5-seed clinched. Cleveland's in the same spot that Kansas City and Baltimore. A lot of the AFC was locked up going into this week, but it's going to be. That I think Kansas City is capable of beating any of those teams we just listed off on a good week. However, you beat one of them, can you beat the next one the next week? And if you beat them, can you beat the next one the next week? The inconsistent play to me is the concern because if that bad Chiefs team shows up one week in the playoffs, you will not win because it's elite competition week after week after week.
It is Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show brought to you by The Dive on Patton Street. We are talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and the playoff permutations that they face as we go into the game today. We're watching Jacksonville and Tennessee right now, which is a big game for Alec because if Jacksonville loses, his Steelers are in.
For sure. This is one of the 2 breaks they would need today. So we're all in on Tennessee today as a family. Everyone here, we're all rooting for it. And we all want to see it.
And Ned mentioned 21-0 in the Browns game right now. And what possibly will be Bill Belichick's last game in New England. They're winning 3-0 over the New York Jets. I'm sure there's throngs of fans in the crowd. What do you think about that? What do you think about Bill Belichick and him possibly losing his job, do you think it's one of those things where it's as a coach he's run his course there, or do you think it's a case of what have you haven't done much for me lately?
Well, you have to look at it in several cases, but in Belichick's case, there is a certain time element with all coaches, all players. Eventually, everything comes to an end. It did with Andy Reid in Philadelphia. He was certainly ensconced for as long as he won, or at least was in contention every year, and he didn't win in the last couple of years. In fact, what was he, 3-12 or something like that, or 3-13 his final year. Mm-hmm. And Philadelphia let him go, and he's out of work 20 minutes. The Chiefs got him. Well, the same with Belichick. He's an outstanding coach. You might not like him as a person, but my God, you won 11 straight conference championships, and you got in the playoffs virtually every year, and you had a Tom Brady and people like that. He could be out of work or could be fired. I don't think he will be, but he also could resign and go to a better circumstance where the team is stronger. His team isn't very good right now. They don't have a leader at quarterback. The Los Angeles Chargers do, and they are looking for a head coach. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a circumstance like that take place.
Let me mention that we do have this new fancy texting thing that you can send us questions on. The number is 417-863-7104. That's 863-7104. If you've got a question or comment or something you want us to talk about, please send us that note over text and put your name on it. We'd love to throw a shout-out to you on the air. What do you think about Bill Belichick? Do you think he deserves a pass, or is it time for him to go, Alec?
I honestly, sitting here today, I feel like what's going to happen is all the talks that they're going to move on, but they're going to lock up a very high draft pick. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to bet him and Robert Kraft come together and they decide they want Belichick there as they draft a new quarterback early on, whether it's Caleb Williams or Drake May or Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, you name it. There's a lot of big guys in this draft. I think he's going to end up staying put because I think they're coaching a really good defense up there. The offense just has to get something going. And with those prospects on the board and Belichick's history with the franchise, I think he stays. However, there is very much the chance that he goes, and if he does, I'm like Andy Reid, he's out 20 minutes. Someone will pick him up.
Let me ask you this, because I think you and I were chatting the other day and talking that the Chicago Bears they've locked up the top spot. So Justin Fields has played pretty good this year. So what do? Do you take maybe a wide receiver or an offensive lineman in the top spot, and you leave those quarterbacks, and maybe Michael Penix falls to New England?
I think if you're Chicago, Fields has played well. It's been up and down. But if you believe in Fields at all, I think you trade, you get out of one, make someone come pay you a king's ransom to go get that quarterback, and then draft around Fields. Go get Marvin Harrison Jr. Go get Neighbors out of LSU. If you can get him some skill players, or you lock up another pass rusher. They traded for Montez Sweat earlier this year, and he's been great. That Chicago team looks a lot different with just a couple moves. But the flip side is you trade Fields, get your quarterback, reset your timer until you have to pay big quarterback money. But I think keeping Fields is the right move. Build around him.
100% agreed. And draft a guy. And Jaden Daniels, the kid from LSU, is, in my opinion, he is the top individual to. You can make an argument for any of them, but he is a fine player. Get him and then trade him. Trade him and gets to some team for that ransom. A couple of offensive linemen, maybe a hard-charging linebacker, wide receiver, whatever. But you could get a lot of value for a top draft choice who you want to trade immediately.
What are your thoughts, Josh?
I kind of agree with that. I think if I was in that position and I decide Justin Fields is my guy, I would try to trade the number one pick for multiple picks in the first round. Mm-hmm. Or in the subsequent rounds, and try to get, like you're saying, that Marvin Harrison Jr. or a really good wide receiver, or those complementary players that can help Justin Fields be better. So I think that's if they're deciding that Justin Fields is their quarterback, that's what they should do, because otherwise you create a controversy that doesn't need to be there, and he may say, okay, well, if you draft a quarterback, I'm gone. Get me out of here.
417-863-7104 if you'd like to text us with a comment or suggestion. Right now, 21-10 with Jacksonville leading over Tennessee, or losing right now to Tennessee. Sorry, I got that all mixed up in my mind. Let's talk a little bit about how this time of year is really interesting for the NFL, because the haves and the have-not conversations going on right now, teams that are looking to make changes. Where do you see the coaching carousel going tomorrow, Ned?
Oh, I don't think it'll happen tomorrow, but maybe next week, maybe a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's hard to say. But in terms of coaches being let go, I really don't know. I don't think there's anybody who is in dire jeopardy. Andy Reid, of course, is going to stay where he is. But there are others who have had shaky years. But the fact of the matter remains, the coaches aren't out there playing. It's their horses who are playing. And how well you have them in the corral, I think, makes the biggest difference, obviously.
Let me ask you this. So do you think Antonio Pierce has earned that job?
Yes, I absolutely do. And the players, he has the backing of the players. There's your key. He's a player's coach. They want him around. He obviously has some skills about him. The Raiders do need some help draft-wise. They always seem to every single year. But he has gotten them together, and they're playing winning football.
Got an interesting note here from Lauren. She says that she's questioned Nagy's play calling all season long. What looks like there's going to be a house cleaning in Washington. Could you see Eric Bieniemy back on the sideline for the Chiefs?
Absolutely can. Yes, indeed. I absolutely can. And maybe with some kind of a little exclamation point at the end of his new contract, if he were to come back, that he is the head coach in waiting.
Mike Tomlin, you think he's safe?
I think he's safe at this point. Another winning season. They've looked better over these past few weeks. I'm willing to bet tomorrow that unless something changes and it is possible they can win the division, I think Atlanta moves on from Arthur Smith. I think Ron Rivera's gone from Washington. And if Buffalo misses, I think Sean McDermott's out in Buffalo as well.
Wow. That'd be a big one.
Yeah, I can see all that happening.
Yeah. What about you, Josh? Nick Saban safe?
I think Nick Saban's safe. He's not happy, but I think he's safe.
Is he ever happy?
No.
That's why
he's happy like the 5 minutes after they win a national championship, and then he goes on a recruiting trip after that. So,
he's happy when he's making commercials with Deion Sanders.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Deion brings in that buffalo, and Saban says, elephant will look better.
An elephant would be scarier.
Yeah. Well, the other part of the haves and the have-nots, that there are teams today that are playing for their seeding in the NFL draft. So there's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, even when a team's not competing for a playoff spot at this point, they're not competing for something. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. What's the number 2 spot look like? Do you know, Alec?
So number 2 is still up in the air. It could be Washington. It could be New England. And it's not entirely based on just whether one wins, one loses. If they both were to lose, it depends on some other tiebreakers and how they fall. So we know that Chicago gets one by way of Carolina. And then from there, it's a little it's not decided yet. We're gonna need to see some of these afternoon games play out to know for sure.
It's kind of interesting because we talk about Belichick. That's been a big story all morning long, possibly coaching his last game in New England. And it's really interesting to see, though, that they could be in the number 2 spot, and there's some quality. I mean, there's at least five quality quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
In the NFL, coming out in the NFL draft this season, plus Marvin Harrison, plus a couple of other game-changing players on either side of the ball, that really maybe New England keeps him, and that meeting is really just go, okay, who do you want to draft? Who do you want to take? Who's the next Tom Brady? So let me ask you guys real quickly that question. Who's the next Tom Brady out of this group? What do you think, Ned?
Well, he's Tom Brady, after all. You have to understand he was a number 6, a 6th-round draft choice. Come on. Now, he was good in college, but he wasn't great. He wasn't the big headline product that the Wolverines are accustomed to making at QB. So I don't think it's fair to judge one of these guys coming out now as the next Tom Brady. You've seen that with Fields. You've seen it with any of the other quarterbacks who came out. The kid from Alabama who went to the Patriots. He was going to be the next Tom Brady, Mac Jones. And he hasn't developed into anything. And the other Jones from Duke, he was the guy with the New York Giants who was supposed to take them to the promised land and all that. Yeah, the media gets so involved in this. There's such a difference between college and pro, same as there is between high school and college. It's a different game altogether, and you have to possess skills like a Patrick Mahomes has. Now, there's a guy on whom you build your franchise.
Well, and you don't even know that until you get them there. I mean, nobody knew that about Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I mean, he was not thought of as being the guy.
That's why I'm saying you have to have the team there.
It's some sort of intangibles sometimes, too, that go into it. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the college playoffs. I'm sure Ned wants to talk about the Tournament of Champions. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
35 minutes away from the start of the Chiefs pregame show. You got to push up those things so you can talk on the radio. That's how that works. Joe Westen, Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts, Alex Scott. We're talking sports. Ned, it is a big week locally. Coming up, Tournament of Champions.
TFC begins on Thursday. Excellent field. There has been one change in it. Seattle's Rainier Beach comes in, replacing Cardinal Hayes from the Bronx, and I hate that because Cardinal Hayes back east, folks, is a very, very big name in prep sports. But they won't be here. They had to pull out of it for some reason. And so the team from Rainier Beach comes in out of Seattle, and they're good. But it's the McEachern team from Powder Springs, Georgia, that plays Vashon in the final game on the first night. Watch out, guys. That's a great, great game. Glendale and Central. Have any of you guys seen Central play?
I saw some highlights, and
they
looked
good.
They looked really good.
They're good. They're quick. And they're going to get tested here, being in the Tournament of Champions, of course. But yes, it's great competition. It's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's a big deal. Saturday night they surround it with the dunk contest and all this sort of thing. But it's a great attraction.
Nice.
And the crowds are always big.
Sponsored by Bass Pro Shop. It is the Tournament of Champions. It's a big deal every year because you have the top prep schools coming to Springfield to play in a big-time tournament. And who's the team to watch or the player to watch this year, Ned?
Well, there are several, but Paul VI from Fairfax, Virginia, is annually one of the top teams in the country. The McEachern team from Powder Springs, Georgia, also very good. Hey, Edmond North from Oklahoma. They have a very nice basketball team. And who knows, our three Missouri teams, Vashon, Glendale, and Central, could make a name for themselves out of it. It's impossible to say, but there are some really good teams and some great players. I don't think there's any number one player in the country, as there have been in the past. Like last year we had Link Academy up here from Branson. Yeah. They won the doggone thing, and their top player, Elliot Cadeau, who had another year of prep eligibility, starts for North Carolina.
Wow.
That tells you something about the level of play that you were seeing.
Yeah, we've had a history of great teams and great players come through Springfield to play at the Tournament of Champions over the years. So if you get a chance to go out and see that, it should be great, great basketball. Let's talk about the college playoffs. I'm sorry, Josh.
No,
I'm really, really sorry.
That's a hollow sorrow.
No, it's not. I feel bad. You know, it's like when people laugh at me when the Yankees lose, when they finish last in the division.
Here's what I can say. I say this a lot, and people don't believe me. As an Alabama fan, I don't expect them to win the national championship every year. I want them to, but I don't expect it. But as long as they're in the hunt and competing, I'm happy. So I'm happy with this season. It really came. If they had been able to beat Texas early on, it might have been a totally different animal in this 14 playoff. But they made it to the Final Four, which was kind of a controversial thing. And they played a good game against Michigan, but Michigan's a bunch of cheaters, and they were able to beat. No, I mean, I was really impressed.
Voiced by Mr.
Michigan's defense was spectacular in that game, and that was the difference. Michigan's defense was all over Alabama all the first half. They sacked Milroe 5 times in the first half, and it was still a close game. It went to overtime. Alabama had a chance to send it to double overtime, and Michigan stopped them. The defense stopped them on 4th down. So it was a good game. I'm sad that Alabama lost, but next year is going to be insane with a 12-team playoff. It's going to be totally different all across the board.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how that plays out next year, and just to see what we're talking about this time next year, if we're on the air this time next year.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you had Liberty, who was undefeated.
Ned's laughing at that one.
Liberty got their shot. They played Oregon, and Oregon destroyed them. So you're like, okay, Liberty, you were undefeated. You got your shot against a big team. You're not there yet.
And that is why that matchup took place. It was to show the hey, we need to be there. We want to be there. It's a different animal altogether.
Right.
But you will see that again next year when somebody, one of those teams, be it from Conference USA or Sun Belt or whomever, does very well. They'll get there. They'll be a number 12 seed.
They'll be the 12 or the 11. They'll get their shot.
If you want to comment, you can always do that through texting app 417-863-7104, 863-7104. National championship game tomorrow?
Yeah.
It's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow
night.
Well, the other one is this afternoon, about to start here in a few minutes. South Dakota State and Montana, the 1AA national championship. Which, gang, if 1AA is not that far below the 1A, it's about a half a step. It's the depth factor. We've talked about it all along. The benches. That's where the difference in scholarships comes into play. But it'll be a great game. Well, the Kansas City Chiefs' third-string quarterback, who may see some action today, he's a South Dakota State kid. So, indeed, you've got all sorts of possibilities. Do want to tell you real quick, Josh, your ball club opens up with Western Kentucky next year.
Ugh.
And a couple weeks later, they go to Wisconsin, they go to Tennessee, they go to LSU, and they go to Oklahoma to play.
Wow.
Boy.
So their reward for being good is tough schedule.
Finally, they'll play a tough schedule.
Finally.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
Western Kentucky's tough.
they're going to play.
They're D1. They're D1, and they're a good ball club.
They will be there that day. We can definitely know
There
that
will be a
much.
team on the field against Alabama
Crimson
that
Tide.
day.
It's not McCook Barber College anymore.
No, like they do play frequently, like the School for the Blind. They've
Yeah.
played them several times, I know, in the past. So tomorrow night, Washington, Michigan. Who you got, Ned?
Michigan. I believe they're 4.5 point favorite over this one. I just think Michigan is a better organized team. Now, I do think it'll be a higher scoring game than we've seen in the past. Penix is going to make it that way. Penix is a really, really good quarterback, but he has played against Michigan in the past. Penix is a transfer to Washington from Indiana.
Isn't everybody a transfer these days?
Oh, they are. They are. Yeah. Virtually speaking, they are. But Penix is a real cool customer. He's got a good blocking scheme. Washington has a good team. And Michigan and Washington play each other again next year in the regular season since Washington joins the Big Ten.
What do you think, Alec?
Well, I think Michigan, and I think both these teams earned their spot here. I think last weekend was really a show that the committee got it right with the four teams they chose because we had back-to-back excellent games. But what I think it will come down to is I think that Washington has a better offense than Michigan. I think Michigan has a better defense than Washington. I think the gap between Washington's offense and Michigan's offense is smaller than the gap between Michigan's defense and Washington's. So I think Michigan pulls out the win, but I just really, really hope it's another good game because we had two awesome semifinals last year, and then the final was a 60-point drubbing by Georgia. So that is the absolute worst-case scenario. That cannot happen again for college football. So I think Michigan wins. Just really hoping it's a good game, though.
Josh?
I think Washington's going to win it. I think Washington pulls the upset. I think they played such a solid game against Texas, and Texas was favored in that game, weren't they?
It was pretty much
Or
a
almost a
toss-up.
pick 'em. Almost
it was
a pick 'em.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were expecting Texas to win, and Washington played a solid game. Their defense was solid. They held Texas. I think they can do that to Michigan as well, especially if Michigan didn't steal their signs. Then,
You know that guy was at the game.
Yeah.
He went as a fan at the Rose Bowl. He was there.
Sure, of course he was. Of course he was.
And I was remarking to some friends of mine midway through the game, gosh, it really looks like Michigan knows exactly what Alabama's going to do here.
Exactly. So I'm rooting for Washington, and I think Washington is very capable of beating Michigan.
I am. I'm rooting for Washington, and I think that would turn college football a little bit on its ear.
Yeah.
You know, from the traditional picks, if Washington goes in and wins this game, and I'd like to see that. I like to see things shook up and turned on its ear from what people traditionally think.
And it'd be a good swan song for the pack whatever.
Yeah,
that would be something great.
Where are they going next year? Washington,
Into
Big Ten.
Washington will be Big Ten. USC and UCLA are Big
Ten, and Oregon is Big
and
Ten.
Oregon's
the
Big
ones who are left out are, well, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, all also Pac-10.
Oh.
They're Pac-12, I should say, are going to the Big 12 now. They're coming over into the Midwest to play.
What happened to the Big Sky Conference? Is
That's
that
still
around?
around.
Okay, well, they could all go there.
Yeah,
No. What they're going to do is go to the
conference.
the Western Athletic Conference in basketball for Washington State and Oregon State, and then they're going to form for 1 year. They're joining the Mountain West, and that's it's only 1 year that they're going to. Then they'll have some time to form their own league and join their own. And the reason that they're doing that 1 year is because if they join the Mountain West for longer than that, then the Mountain West would be eligible to get some of the rebates that both Washington State and Oregon State are getting from the other Pac-12 schools who are leaving. They get, they're talking millions and millions of dollars here. And those two schools have said, that's ours. You ain't getting anything.
Interesting. Do you think we're headed to like what they talked about years ago, the super conferences, like 2 super conferences?
No, it won't be 2. I think it's 4.
Oh, you think it'll be 4?
Mm-hmm. But yes, I think that's exactly the way it's headed.
Okay.
Do you see that, and quickly answer, do you see that as being something that's unique to football only?
I don't know how the contractual situations will work as far as the basketball is concerned, but I do know the way it works now is that Arizona and Arizona State and Utah and Colorado from the old Pac-12 joining the Big 12 now all play within that conference. In other words, they'll all be playing Kansas, they'll all be playing Iowa State, Baylor, TCU, and those people. They're all on the schedule for next year. So at least for that 1 year, it's within the contractual conference makeup.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yep.
When we come back, we'll talk a little baseball. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
18 minutes away from the start of the Chiefs pregame show right here on 104.7 The Cave, 3:35 this afternoon. And the Chiefs will take on the Chargers. We do not have a clue when we'll be on next week. We don't. We'll find that out when all the money's laid on the table later on. Those gangsters that run the NFL and the television networks.
Would classify TV as being in the gangster category.
Oh, yeah, they're all gangsters.
They're a monopoly maybe, but not a gangster category.
I want to say thanks to Lauren again. She sent us a question a little bit earlier. If you've got a question or comment, 417-863-7104. Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. I am Joe Westen, joined by Ned Reynolds, Alex Scott, Josh Roberts. Let's talk baseball, okay? I mean, I know Masters are coming up. I know March Madness.
Not until April, though.
I know, but it's that time of year when people start talking about that stuff. Super Bowl.
There is a golf tournament going on this weekend, the first of the
that?
PGA events. Well, that's the Masters is not a PGA event, but it is part of the whole circumstance. But be that as it may, the baseball scene has been curiously silent here in the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
While football has pretty much taken over the dominance. I'm wondering who's going to get Cody Bellinger, or does he re-sign with the Chicago Cubs? What do you think, Alan?
I think he's back with the Cubs. I think
too.
that team had a much better year than anticipated last year, and he was at the heart of it. And I think that's your sales pitch to a guy like Bellinger is just, hey, we're going to keep building around it. Come back, let's roll it again. And, you know, as quiet as things have been in baseball, you can argue that the NL Central has been the quietest of all of them. Mm-hmm. You know, the Cardinals making waves with 3 pitchers all older than 32, 33. They made a trade this past week for another bullpen arm. Not a bad decision to make because they need them. But and then, you know, and that's been the most active team in that division. I've heard basically nothing out of Milwaukee, nothing out of Cincinnati.
Well, new manager in Milwaukee, and that would.
Well, I guess that was the biggest shakeup was an intra-division managerial move, which I look forward to the Cubs' first game in Milwaukee to see the reception.
You know, I like the manager only has a certain level of control, but there is some credence to the fact that as the leader goes, so goes the team. The one I'm really anxious to see is the Padres, because you know who takes over now. Mike Schilt He's an old friend of us down here with the Springfield Cardinals. I thought did great with the St. Louis Cardinals. Why they got rid of him, I do not know, and to this day I don't know. And I'm not sure he knows. But he suffered a little bit because of that personally, because he'd been a Cardinal all his life. But now he's with the Padres. And this guy, this is his second or third year, I think, with San Diego, with the organization. And now he's the manager for the first year. Anxious to see what kind of an influence he has with this team, because there are some pretty good players. Some of the great ones are gone. We do have some pretty good players on that team. They could be a force.
What do you think the Cardinals, the Cardinals caravan's coming up here in a couple of weeks?
No, it's this weekend.
It's this weekend. That's right. Where's that happening at?
At Hammons Field on Friday. They have their little get-together in the Bill Rowe Training Center at Hammons Field. And Iman Herrera will be down here. Brendan Donovan will be here. And then they have Ankiel, I believe, is coming down with them. But they're here for the public to meet and greet and so forth and so on. Then I think they go over to the Tournament of Champions and get introduced over there, too.
That's cool.
What do you think the Cardinals are? There's still some big names out there on the pitching market. Blake Snell is not signed with anybody yet. Jordan Montgomery has not signed with anybody yet. There's some talk that he'd like to go back to the Rangers, but they don't have the budget for it. So where do you see these guys landing? Are the Cardinals in the mix for any of these guys? And then there's another Japanese pitcher that's come out of the woodworks that people are excited about too.
Well, I don't really think the Cardinals are in the market for any of them, to be honest with you. Jordan Montgomery would be a perfect fit back in St. Louis, but he doesn't want to be there. And the talk has been that he wants to re-sign with the Rangers again. Somehow, Joe, they're the world champs. And he could, or they could, as an organization, I think, come up with the finances to perhaps pay maybe not exactly what he wants, but something very close to it. Montgomery's an awfully good pitcher, and he was a catalyst to what they did. And as far as Snell is concerned, the rumors are that the Giants are looking at him, and he would be a West Coast fit. After all, he is the reigning Cy Young Award winner. That's pretty doggone good. And indeed, the market for him has been a little bit on the shaky side. I just don't see the Cardinals. I think they have what they're going to keep right now, and that's the 3 30-year-olders who are innings eaters. Hey, Lance Lynn at 37, he can still eat 5 or 6 innings. Sonny Gray, he's a proven winner last year with the Minnesota Twins. There's any number. Gibson, the kid who they got from the Baltimore Orioles, who wanted him gone with a 15-9 record. Explain that. However, Baltimore was awfully good last year, too. Is the Cardinals going to be in that equivalency? I don't think so, but we'll see.
Well, what do you think that looks like for the Cardinals going into the season? If you're a Cardinal fan, what are you hanging your hat on?
Offense.
But they didn't really have much of that last year either.
They didn't. It was on the shaky side, but I think Goldschmidt had an uncharacteristic off year last year. Although he is 36 now, but the Cardinals are committed to him. They've already said they're going to work on an extension for him. Haven't signed it yet, but they'll work on an extension. But the 3 pitchers who are supposedly long of tooth, I can't buy that. Not at my age. I can't buy anything that says a guy is too old. But the fact is that they do have some questionable experience on that ball club, and can they make it work? I think that's the big key.
Celebrating deep in his heart right now is Alex Scott, because Tennessee's taking a 27-14 lead right now in the third quarter over Jacksonville. So it could be a upset here happening, and the Steelers could get a Christmas gift late.
Yep, get just a sneak in there. So we'll keep rooting, but I feel for the Cardinals where they're at right now. I also don't feel like they're going to make any moves for these big names. I think they're basically done, and I think they know that this team can push for the NL Central with the way it's laid out right now. The hope's got to be Walker takes the next step. He had a promising rookie campaign. The hope that Arenado continues to do what he did. You hope Goldschmidt bounces back a little bit, and the Wilson Contreras that showed up late last year plays that way the whole year. Because for most of the season, Contreras was as advertised. He just ended up being the scapegoat in the beginning, and that's the impression that was left. But it's a better rotation than last year. Not great. The offense could be really good, probably not great. And it all comes down to that classic baseball. Can we sneak into the playoffs and get hot at the right time? That's the best case scenario as they're built right now.
What about your Cubs?
Well, I hope that they keep Bellinger. That's an important piece for them to be at the level that they were this season. They competed. They almost made it. So I don't know that I can't see them spending any more money to get anybody else. But, that division is pretty open. I mean, I feel like it's a tighter one than some of the others that we see. And so if they're competing, I'll be happy. Like I said, we've still got another 100 years or so before they expect to win a World Series.
What Alec pointed out a short time ago, within that division, did Cincinnati do anything of spectacular proportions? No.
Right.
Did Milwaukee? They got a new manager. And did the Pittsburgh Pirates, who were an early season surprise? Well, the bottom line is they did not.
Yeah. So that division is not trying to pull in these huge, big-name, big contract players. So they're all just doing it business as usual, it seems.
Funny to me, it seems like baseball's broken down into we'll see what the Dodgers eat, and then what's left over. The other major market teams, they come in and do their thing, and then after that, the mid-markets kind of go, well, okay, this scrap's left over here. We'll take that, and we'll see what we can do with it. It's just the way baseball is these days.
I think you make a very good point. That is what the big money guys do. The other teams seem to, hey, look what they did over here. Well, maybe we can do this and do that. Yeah, follow the leader. That's I think, probably the foremost philosophy they're going through right now.
When we come back, we'll have our picks for today's game. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The K, brought to you by The Dive on Patent.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Just came across Travis Kelce has been downgraded to not playing today, so his streak of consecutive 1,000-yard seasons comes to an end. What do you think of that?
I'm a little surprised.
I am too.
But in regards to his physical well-being, he may be a little bit more hurt than we are led to believe. He's taken a hell of a beating this year. And this is, 16 games, and he's been hit hard. He's done well. Maybe they've come to an agreement that says, okay, hey, you're 16 yards away from it. We'll give you that bonus. That could be what's happening. But you want to keep your people safe for the playoffs. That's the real important part of it.
Are you? I guess maybe Taylor won't be there today.
Oh, maybe. A lot of it depends. What Reed has said he's going to do. The quarterback remains. That's Blaine Gabbert. He will be the QB for the whole game unless the third stringer comes in. Mahomes won't see any action. Do you see Pacheco in there? Probably not.
I wouldn't think so.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire probably to an extent, but he'll rotate. That's going to rotate all these their non-skill players, just to use the term, and see what happens there. Anxious to see what the kid from Kansas State, their number one draft choice, does at defensive end, because he will play. I doubt Chris Jones sees any action at all, and Chris Jones may have played his last regular season game with the Chiefs, playing the playoffs, of course, but his contractual situation's really dicey at the moment. So I'm looking to see how this kid from Kansas State plays out there. Abduke Usmanda or something. I'm not sure.
God bless you.
But that's the fascinating part to me. Who wins? I think the Chiefs win. They're a better team.
What's the score?
Let's say 19-17, Chiefs over the Chargers.
What's your over-under on the college game tomorrow night? 5 hours or less?
4.5.
All right, Alec, your pick now.
I do think the Chiefs win. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think Chris Jones plays because he's got that sacks incentive. I think he plays on 3rd and 8+ exclusively.
That could be.
And then all of a sudden the intensity for that Chargers offensive line is going to have to ratchet up because a very fresh, motivated Chris Jones comes in for very specific situations. I think Kansas City wins. I joked before, so I guess I'll just put it on the air that Blaine Gabbert's going to throw for 550 yards and 6 touchdowns, and a Mizzou graduate will show what quarterback play really looks like as we have the quarterback controversy. But Kansas City's going to win. I think because it's a garbage game, it's actually going to be higher scoring. I think they're going to win 34-20.
So what do you think, Josh? What's your pick?
I think both the teams are going to get bored about halfway through and just stop and go home.
All right, there you have it. I picked the Chiefs to win, too. Thanks, guys. We'll get you up to date on when we're going to be on the air sometime during the course of the week with Ned and Mike in the morning. So be sure you listen to Ned and Mike all week long to find out what's going on with the Chiefs playoff seedings and what time we'll be on the air next week. Thanks to Mike Intern, Ned, Alec, Josh, Corbin Campbell, Brian Tyndall, Nick Fury. We'll see you guys next weekend.